Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you to our Doing Business in the New Normal series. Thank you for being here, and thank you to Jesse and Cathy for joining. I just want to go over a few housekeeping items before I introduce our panelists. The questions are public, not private, but your last name will not be shared. So feel free to ask questions. We're going to have a Q&A after hearing from each panelist, and you can ask these questions on the right side of your screen. The webinar is being recorded, and it will be available on demand after. And the slides are also available for you to download, and we'll be sharing them after the webinar as well. So first off, my name is Madi Bullock. I work with our digital events and public relations here at Weave, and I'm really excited to introduce our topic today. This is a 4-part series, and this first part today is covering minimizing contact while staying healthy. The reason that we went through this specific topic was because, if you look at these stats here, Weave was able to commission a study with healthcare practices and small and medium business owners, and with the expectations that are put upon business owners now as we are navigating this new normal. And if you look at the stats that I have listed here, and I know that Jesse and Cathy are going to be sharing a lot more with you throughout the webinar today, but it's interesting to see that clients are 5 times more likely to expect that their quality of care is going to improve during COVID-19 than to say it will get worse. There is a lot of expectation put on small, medium business owners right now, especially in the healthcare industry. And we're going to go over a few of those things today that can help navigate this and help you be completely on point so that your customers and your staff can have the best experience possible. Today, I'll go through the introductions. Each person is going to be able to introduce themselves and give you a little bit of their background. And they're each also going to have a turn to share with you the things that they would have you know from their experience. And it's going to be really, really impactful. I'm very excited. And then we'll have a live Q&A. So please, if any questions come up, you can ask them in the question section or the chat section, as I mentioned before. So today we have Jesse Harding from Weave, and we have Cathy Kuhn from Updox. Jesse, you want to say hi to everyone and give us a little intro about you?
Yeah, hey guys, I'm excited to be here. As Madi mentioned, I am a product manager here at Weave. I work with the mobile app, and so mobile app is my baby. I've been here about 1.5 years. I love working for Weave. My background is actually, I've spent most of my career working with small business owners, whether that was helping them build and market their product. Spend a lot of time helping business owners get financing, and I love working at Weave because I get the chance to help business owners improve their relationships with their own customers, and that's kind of what drives me here at Weave. So I'm excited for a chat today.
Me too. Thanks, Cathy.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cathy Kuhn. I'm from Updox. My role is I'm Director of Strategy Consulting. I'm excited to partner with Weave today. At Updox specifically, I serve as the in-house voice of the customer, or the only clinician on staff. So before coming to Updox, I actually am a registered pharmacist, spending most of my time in community or outpatient type practices. So most recently, I was with Accountable Care Organization, working on quality improvement initiatives with pediatricians. And then prior to that, I spent time in community pharmacy, implementing clinical programs with Kroger Pharmacy and Card Drug.
Awesome. That's really impressive, both of you. Thank you so much again for being here. We're going to start off today hearing from Cathy. She's going to give us some really great insights as far as what to expect with your clients and everything. So Cathy, I'll let you take it from here.
All right. Thanks, Madi. So wanted to share today about what Madi said, that we're trying to minimize contact to stay healthy. So thinking specifically of how we're minimizing that contact and staying healthy to continue providing care for patients. One of the things that Madi had introduced earlier is some statistics that patients are avoiding care during this time. So just again, adding a few more specifics that around some of the statistics of patients avoiding care is that we're seeing 70% of clinicians experienced a greater than 50% decrease in patient volume during the COVID-19 pandemic. So patients are being cautious and wanting to stay safe and distant, but then obviously still need healthcare. So another statistic is that 12% of clinicians say that routine check-ins are happening. So that's a pretty low number of the routine work and visits that patients are needed. They're just really not happening right now. And then 60% of clinicians believe that some of their patients will experience avoidable illnesses or sicknesses because they've been avoiding care. So next slide. So what we're seeing now is that people are turning to telehealth. So on this slide, just to level set on what telehealth is, definition of telehealth is a collection of means or methods for enhancing healthcare, public health and health education delivery, and supporting use through telecommunication technologies. Telehealth can encompass a broad variety of technologies and tactics to deliver care. So we often see telehealth in the form of a face-to-face virtual visit, so like a video visit through a smartphone or a camera on your computer. Next slide. So like I said, many practices and patients are turning to telehealth because instead of avoiding care, they want to make sure that they're able to continue care and provide the care that patients need. So telehealth, there are, of course, a number of benefits that have been studied out there, including improving access to care, which has been critical during the pandemic to extend the reach and expertise of practitioners. Cost efficiencies with better management of chronic disease and reduced travel times and fewer or shorter hospital stays. So what's interesting that I've seen and heard a lot more recently is that the cost efficiencies of not only continuing that care, but thinking about how much people save on the time and the gas it takes to go to a practice. It's been really interesting to see. Improved quality, another benefit of telehealth. So consistently, we're seeing that telehealth services are just as good as those traditional in-person consultations. And then meeting customer demand and increasing satisfaction as telehealth decreases that travel time that we talked about and a lot of those related stresses to getting the patients back into the office. So like I said, next slide, please, Maddie. We're using telehealth as a way to minimize contact, but continuing to stay connected to patients and continuing to stay healthy. But we're continuing also to hear some challenges or potential barriers to telehealth. So a couple common challenges that we do here is that people have issues with technology, just investment in computers, cameras, or other expensive equipment is often thought to be a barrier of telehealth. Patient comfort level with technology, patient preference for in-person visits, so just not being used to this new medium. Practice adoption with technology and then potentially adjusting their workflow with the new technology. And then the reimbursement issues that people are continuing to be concerned about. Next slide, please. But fortunately, we've seen a number of flexibilities happen during the pandemic. So just a few examples is HIPAA flexibility, so as well as telehealth waivers, telehealth expansion to allow different qualifying sites and cost sharing. So again, a lot of flexibilities with telehealth right now, especially as people are looking to continue care and minimize that contact. Next slide. So with everything that's going on, again, trying to continue that care, minimize contact, and then overcome those, being able to overcome those barriers with really those flexibilities being a starting point, telehealth adoption has extremely increased and soared. So what we've seen in practice adoption is that over the past few years, we have seen a steady increase in telehealth adoption, but more than ever now during the pandemic. So even just a year ago, a study from the American Medical Association reported that only 50% of physicians were using or planning on using telehealth. And now what we're seeing is that 94% of practices offered telehealth during the pandemic and are continuing to want to pursue that post-pandemic because of how much success the patients and providers have had with that. In addition, we're seeing 11.3 of the US adults reported using telehealth since the pandemic first began. So again, 11.3 million of US adults reported using telehealth. So not only are the practices adopting, but the patients are very much adopting and interested in it. And in fact, we're seeing 65 of the patients really liking telehealth because of its convenience, not only because of the safety aspect that we're talking about, but they're seeing that long-term benefit of the convenience of more than the in-office appointments. And then lastly, with those who are submitting claims for telehealth, we've seen over a 4,000% increase in claims just over the past year, which makes sense as reimbursement flexibilities have improved over this time. So there continues to be a number of advocacy efforts around telehealth, and obviously patient expectations and then practices have quickly adopted for telehealth. Next slide. So how are people specifically using telehealth? So a study that we had recently conducted, and again, hearing mostly from our practices that we work with, is that telehealth has been adopted in these three main ways. So a medication management type visit. So a lot of practitioners, of course, are prescribing medications. Patients are taking using telehealth as a touch point for titration or adherence type discussions, and also just seeing how they're doing on a recently prescribed medication. So telehealth has been a great way to provide that type of visit. Chronic disease and chronic illness follow-up is the next one. So in continuing that care and eventually, obviously, avoiding an emergency or urgent type visit by being able to check in via telehealth has been great. And then sick visits. So any of those emergency situations, whether it be using the telehealth visit to just triage whether the patient needs to come in or not, or actually delivering that care by being able to inspect the patient, have that discussion about what's going on with their symptoms, and again, just being able to connect at a safe distance. So we've seen telehealth adopt very quickly in those ways. And then one other thing that's not on the slide, but I do want to mention, is that we're seeing a lot of adoption around telehealth in provider-to-provider consults. So, you know, we talk about patient visits, but providers also need to connect with other providers and should be doing so in a HIPAA-compliant way. So again, people are using telehealth to do this and continue care and identify if patients need referrals, or also just having educational discussions and consults with other providers. Next slide. So really just to wrap up, we're seeing patient safety, convenience, and choice continuing to drive telehealth and being a reason why practices really need to continue to consider implementing telehealth, because these are expectations that patients have. So 63% say they like telehealth because they don't like to have to worry about being exposed to other potentially sick patients. And then also on our survey, they said 65% say they like it because it is more convenient. And then lastly, 49% say post-COVID, they rather see and be connected to their provider of choice using telehealth and being connected back to their community provider. So again, whether your practice has adopted telehealth or not, we're gonna see that patient expectations is really gonna drive where we are going with healthcare. So patient safety, convenience, and choice are gonna be the top priorities we'll see. And that really drives telehealth for the future. I'm gonna turn it out now over to Jesse, and Jesse's gonna give him give us some more perspective of what he's been seeing in the industry and with practices.
Yeah, thanks, Cathy. And I want to say, as the pandemic kind of started picking up, we saw a huge uptick in requests of Weave customers asking for telehealth solutions. We were really glad to have Updox as a partner at that time that we could refer those people to. And it's been interesting working in technology, kind of seeing how a lot of tools that we've been able to use during the pandemic were already existing. Cathy talked about the huge uptick in telehealth usage. It already existed, but it's been awesome to see that we've been able to now use those in different ways than we expected. I wanted to focus to start on this stat that Madi shared earlier. This is a daunting stat as I look at it, and it can be a little bit scary. Today, I want to focus, next slide, Madi, on the number one takeaway I want to talk about is how creating a safe environment for your staff can also improve safety and peace of mind for your patients. That 93% number is way too high. We've got to get that number down and make your patients and your staff feel safe to get the healthcare that they need and not put that off. Next. So there's 3 areas of focus that I'll look at here: efficient remote work, office operations for those that are in the office, and then contactless payments. Next. Okay, so I don't know if anyone's getting anxiety like I am looking at this picture. I don't hate crowds. I actually like crowds. Crowds usually mean something fun's going on. But this year, I hate this picture. It makes me feel really uncomfortable. And I've even noticed, I don't know if any of you have noticed this, but when I'm watching a movie or TV, and there's a crowd or people are close together or hugging, I'm like, wait, pandemic, what are you doing? And so I think this year has made us all a little more claustrophobic and not wanting to be around crowds. And so when you think of where your patients or even your staff are at right now, next slide, they're picturing your office in this same way. So they're picturing, whether true or not, they're picturing a ton of people in there, no room to social distance, the guy next to you is coughing uncontrollably. And like Cathy shared, 63% say they like telehealth because they don't have to worry about being exposed to potentially sick patients. I would say that even includes your staff. So I would say not just patients, but people. Any close interaction with a person is going to make them nervous. There's a Gallup poll that goes out on a regular basis to working Americans, and they just ask, have you ever worked remotely? And it usually sits right around 30%. March 31st, or in March, the first week of March, it was here at 31%. You guys know where this is going. Go ahead to the next slide. First week of April, this was up to 62%. So we know a large amount of the workforce has been forced to work from home, and I imagine that's a lot of your staff as well. The next question they ask is, once restrictions on businesses are lifted, if your employer left it up to you, would you prefer to work remotely as much as possible? And 59% said yes. So there's a chunk of your staff, most likely, that are in this 59% that would like to stay working from home as long as possible, if that works out. Go to the next slide. So for efficient remote work, let's talk about some of the things that can help that work more efficiently. So first off, what works remotely in your business? It's important to take a look and see what areas of my business are going to work remote and what aren't, because not everything is going to work. We find that scheduling is something that does tend to work really well remotely. Doesn't really matter where you are, but there's other stuff that isn't going to work, and so it's important to kind of identify that first. The next is to keep a routine, and this is both you in the office if you're not working remote, as well as helping your staff keep a routine on a day-to-day basis at home. And that can include getting up at the time that you normally do. If you work out, still work out, shower, get ready, don't come to work in pajamas. And all of the things that you had in your normal routine to keep you productive. Something that doesn't always work out, but is helpful, is having a dedicated space. So whether that's a corner or a separate room, having a space where your staff knows in their home that when I'm here, I'm working, and their family also knows that. If I'm in this room, I'm working, do not disturb. And then also taking scheduled breaks. We're working remotely at Weave right now, and for the first month of the pandemic, I did not take lunch, I didn't take breaks. And about a month in, my family finally made me, they said, let's take lunch together every day. And that's been awesome. I'm really grateful for that chance to step away, take a breath, and just have a little break before I get back to work. The next one is to over communicate, and this is both internally and externally. So internally, it's important to keep the type of communication that was happening in your office before you had remote workers going on. Even the banter and just kind of fun conversations that go on, you need to keep those going on. And then also just because you're not in a face-to-face environment, sometimes it helps to communicate more than you would on, hey, I'm working on this project, hey, here's the status, and just keep everybody up to date. And then externally, with your patients or clients, the same thing goes. So, there's a lot of uncertainty right now, and people just aren't sure how things are going to go. And so having that extra communication with your patients is going to make them feel more comfortable. Creating clear expectations on availability for your staff is really important. And that, I think it's as important to make it clear when you expect them to be available and when you don't expect them to be available. There are a lot of studies right now that are showing that remote work tends to make people work longer hours at home because they're not worried about the drive, so they tend to work an extra hour or two at home. And so creating that expectation of here's when I need you and here's when I don't, here's when you should be with your family. And then collecting regular feedback. So check in with your staff. How's this working? What's not working? What can we change? And that includes the staff that's remote and also the staff that is still in the office. Ask them what's not working about this remote scenario and what is. Next slide. So back to office operations. So for those that are coming into the office, what can we do to make the experience not this chaotic, full of people experience? Next. So what we're seeing Weave customers do that's really helpful is online consent forms. And again, like I mentioned at the first, these technologies have existed and they're great practice even when not in a pandemic. But online consent forms, for example, being able to have a new patient show up with everything already filled out and ready to go really makes that efficient. Cathy talked a lot about telehealth, and that is an excellent way to decrease the amount of traffic in your office. Another thing that we've seen work really well is wellness forms. And so these are a form that you can send out that just quickly runs through how are you feeling? Have you been exposed to anybody with COVID? Have you been exposed to anybody who's been exposed to COVID? Get these questions out there. You can send them out the day before the appointment, and just make sure your patients know kind of what you expect as far as their health before they show up. Curbside waiting rooms have been really great for Weave customers. So this is the option for your patients to pull up into your parking lot, send a text message to your front desk, let them know that letting the front desk know that they've arrived, and then the front desk can check back with the rest of the staff, with the back office to see when they're ready to come in, and then send them a text back and say, hey, okay, we're ready for you to come back in. Obviously, like if you think back to the picture of the crowded waiting room, this decreases that completely. Nobody's sitting in the waiting room, they're sitting in their car, and they can come in and out really comfortably. And then minimizing staff interaction in general. One of the ways that we'll talk about that's helpful there is contactless payments. But anything you can do to make your patients and your staff more comfortable by limiting that interaction. Next slide. the biggest thing on all of these is letting your patients know. So if you make all of these changes, but your patients don't know about it, they're still picturing that crowded waiting room with the guy coughing uncontrollably. And so you need to communicate with them and walk through each of these things that you've done and let them know, look, this is going to be super slick. We're going to get you in and out. You're not going to have to interact with other people as much as you're used to in this scenario. Next. So let's talk about contactless payments for a little bit. There's obviously a number of ways to do this. The first one there is just setting your terminal up to accept Apple Pay and Google Pay, so that the patient can just pull their phone out of their pocket and tap on the terminal to pay. Super slick, very comfortable, and no contact needing to be done there. And the same goes for the chip pay. That's tap to pay. It's been interesting shopping during the pandemic and seeing which establishments I can tell have actually made changes to the way that they accept payments, and then which haven't. I was at Home Depot the other day, and they have somebody there. They do. I did still have to touch and enter my PIN, but they've got somebody there that's cleaning every terminal, and it's very apparent. Like, they make them front and center, so I know, like, okay, this terminal's been cleaned. As soon as I am done touching it, somebody's going to clean it. And those kind of things definitely increase the comfort level. Being able to accept payments over the phone is another way to increase contactless, or to provide contactless payments. One of the ways that we at Weave have found really works well is a product we have called Text to Pay. And this is the ability to send out a bill via a text message. And so the patient, on their own time can click that link in their text and make the payment. It's really slick and quick, and the customers using Text to Pay are finding that they get paid a lot quicker than they do through any of these methods. And obviously the comfort level is a lot higher as well, because they can, when they're done with their visit, they can just walk out the door and know that they'll be able to make a payment later on. So next slide. So to finish up, I wanted to just give a quick customer highlight. This is a Weave customer, Marion Village Dental. I talked to Corey there, who is the practice manager, and the setup that Marion Village Dental has is they have 2 different locations, and then they have a call center that handles all of the phone calls and scheduling for both locations. So obviously that call center is super critical because they're the ones getting people in seats at both offices. But it's also very close quarters in the call center. And so as the pandemic started, they ended up sending the whole staff of the call center home, and they're actually still working from home, a big chunk of them. And so, he said, the Weave mobile app has allowed us to not skip a beat during this turbulent time regarding our patient communications. And if you can go to the next slide. So some of the things that he said they're using, I talked to him and wanted to find out more about, okay, what are you actually doing that's allowing you to keep this whole chunk of your staff at home? Team chat was one of the big Weave features that they're using. And they're using that in 2 different ways. Obviously, through scheduling, they're needing to let both offices know about cancellations, about people who are going to be late. They're also using that for some of that banter that I talked about earlier, where they're able to, through team chat, keep their relationships with their coworkers kind of fun, like the environment they had in the office. They're using the schedule and specifically our messaging tool within the schedule that allows you to send a message to your to everyone who has an appointment on a specific day. And then they're also making and receiving calls through the mobile app. The great thing about the mobile app there is it allows you to make calls as if you were calling from the office. So the office phone number shows up on the caller ID. And that's awesome because it allows, first off, it doesn't force your staff to give out their phone number as they're making calls, but it also, patients are more likely to pick up the number the call when they recognize that phone number. So it's awesome to hear from Corey how Marion Village Dental has been handling the scenario of having workers work remote so that they're comfortable, so there's less staff in the office, but also they're still able to conduct business in an efficient way. And Maddie, that's all I had.
Jesse, thank you so much. And thank you so much, Cathy, as well. You guys both provided really, really interesting insights and a lot of really great actionable things that people can adopt into their businesses to be able to, I think, not only make their staff comfortable, but obviously make their clients and their customers comfortable. One thing that really stuck out to me in this, and that we recognized at Weave at the beginning when everything started to change, was that over communicating, something that both of you were able to touch on, has been so effective in gaining the trust from customers to the businesses that they are loyal to. So I actually have a question for both of you, actually, that I would like to ask, and I'll have Cathy answer it first. As far as acquiring new business in this time, in order to be agile and to be able to allow for that, for those interactions and for new people to come in and feel comfortable, what do you think is important in that process for making new patients to a practice or new customers to a business feel comfortable and feel like this is somewhere that they are safe to be? Cathy, I'll have you go first.
Sure. I think, Maddie, just what you touched on is that over communicating, and I know Jesse touched on this obviously as well, just over communicating to both existing and new clients or patients is key. So recently I heard from a panel of our customers saying that they've actually acquired a lot of new patients during the pandemic. And to me, that kind of shocked me at first, just because we hear so much that patients avoid care, but what we heard is that their existing customers had such great advocacy and word of mouth because they knew that their practice was handling everything very, very safely. And they could point to that because people had made updates on their website or sent email communication or made updates to their social media. So again, just over communicating and being able to point to that really helped the existing customers feel comfortable. And then that would, again, by word of mouth, impact the future customers that were coming on.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Jesse, do you have any thoughts on that in making new people?
Yeah, I think Cathy's exactly right. So we all know in small business, referrals are the #1 way that you get new customers. And so creating a great experience for your existing customers right now is going to be the best way to attract new customers. I've talked to a couple similar Weave customers, similar to what Cathy was talking about, where they've actually seen an uptick in new patients during this time, and that is because of the great referrals that their current patients are giving. I think on top of that, really, and this goes back to the over communicating, but having even on your website, you see some practices that have a big message about COVID and some that don't. I think having that is helpful because I think for new patients, if they're looking around, that's something they're looking for is this place safe for me and my family? And to see that your practice finds it important enough to put it right on the homepage so they can see like, okay, here's the way that they're handling this. This is a safe place for us to go. I think that helps as well.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I also go back to the comment that you had about going to different businesses and seeing, the updates that they have made and really being able to tell who is taking this very seriously in terms of safety for their customers and who is not. And I would echo what you said, Jesse, that I can absolutely tell and feel very comfortable when I go into a business and know that they are taking the right measures, because it's visible, it's obvious, just by, do they have extra masks on hand, for example, or is there hand sanitizer close by? And these might not necessarily be things that they are pushing on people, but to have those things readily available, it feels, they're taking the safety and the cleanliness just very, very seriously. And I think just physically you can see that. We also at Weave, I mentioned this before, but the over communication can come in so many different ways to your customers, but being there proactively before anyone has any questions, before anybody is wondering if you're still in business or what your new hours are, communicate that. So if you do have new hours or restricted times that people are available, communicate that. You can also over communicate about the safety measures that you are doing. And just help eliminate that fear and help people feel more comfortable in even thinking about coming into the office if they need to. They already know the measures that you're taking. They already know the new hours that you have because you have included them in your community. And this really is about personal connection and the power of the personal connection from your business to the people that you're serving. Just letting them know that you're there and this is what you're doing and you're all in it together, and the experience is still going to be really great despite the new restrictions. I think it shows that businesses can really be agile and take advantage of new tools and new ways to do things, and not only thrive with their current customers, but be able to add to that and grow their business. You can absolutely grow your business in a pandemic. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to with all of the tools that we have. Another question that I have is actually for you, Cathy, which is what are some barriers that you have seen in telehealth? And you went over through a lot of the advantages, but what are some barriers that you have seen that you can kind of clear up?
Sure. Yeah, so there's definitely a number of barriers that we've seen, including that reimbursement and practice adoption, as well as just overcoming that payment for buying new equipment for technology. But at Updox, we've been able to see mostly and hear from the practices that patient barriers really still are the ones that they struggle with or need to overcome. And you think about it is that, like, from a practice perspective, you can control what technology you have, you can control kind of what staff training you have. But the thing that is really the unknown is once you connect to the patient is like, what do they have? So that's where practices still or not are intentionally putting in effort and work to help improve practice patient adoption with telehealth. So a couple of things that we've done at Updox is one is make our technology so easy where there's no app to download and the patient actually receives a text message invite to the video chat environment. But more importantly, I think just like you had said before, is over communicating to the patients on what to expect through a new telehealth visit is important. So a couple of ways that people have done that, of course, is just preparing their staff to know what to expect and what type of barriers that a patient might experience connecting to a telehealth visit. And then just understanding that there's uncertainty because patients have never done that before. So we've seen a number of practices, again, using their existing communication tools, like their website, for example, is, provide information of, this is what a telehealth visit will look like, and this is how you can prepare. And then additionally, when scheduling patients, oftentimes we'll see practices actually do a test video connection visit so that patients, if they haven't done any type of FaceTime or any other type of, telehealth type technology, they actually will do a test connection perhaps with the scheduler or somebody else in the office, so that they overcome that initial hurdle that the patient might have of actually connecting to the technology. So again, just the barriers, while there's a number of them, patient adoption is something that is critical. And that's where, again, over communicating and preparing both the staff by providing them some educational talking points, as well as updating information on what patients see, on what they can expect for telehealth.
No, that's awesome. Thank you so much. And Jesse, for you, with the mobile app specifically, what have you seen? I don't know, what kind of feedback have you received from mobile app users? And I also want to preface this question with, I should have included this in the slides actually, but I had a heat map created of mobile usage in March of 2020. And then to show the change in usage of the mobile app over time up to current. And it's insane because although a lot of offices started opening again in April, mobile app usage increased. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so that's been kind of fun. One of our goals as a team this year was to increase our adoption of the mobile app. So coming into the year, about 30% of Weave's customers were using the mobile app on a monthly basis. And we kind of had the goal of getting that to 50% by the end of the year. And COVID ended up, as people moved remotely, especially, ended up increasing that adoption by way more than we had even had the goal. So we were sitting at around 77% of Weave customers using that on a monthly basis in April. And like you said, that actually hasn't gone down as offices have been able to go back to business. And we believe part of that is that a whole new group of our customers were introduced to the power that the mobile app can provide. And so as they've gone back to work and they're back in the office, they're actually finding ways to still leverage that the mobile app and the things that it does. There's very close parity with most features on the mobile app to the desktop app. And so we find that doctors are using it when they're out running errands. We find that the office manager or practice manager is using it at home to check the schedule for tomorrow, to let hygienists know when they need to be in. Doctors love using it for follow-ups at the end of the day, to be able to look at the schedule and actually click right on it and send a text message or a call to a patient who had a rough time or had a big procedure. So yeah, that's been kind of fun. I'd say it's one silver lining to everything that we're going through, is that we've been able to provide a lot of benefit, we feel, to our customers through the mobile app.
Yeah, I think that really speaks to the reality of where our culture is headed technology-wise. The convenience that we are all used to and that we enjoy and that we expect is not just on a business owner level, it's also on a customer and a client base. And so I think that really speaks to and ties in really well the increase in usage of telehealth, but then also with mobile apps. Yes, their hours might be back to normal, but to be able to have the flexibility to do a telehealth visit, to have the flexibility to manage your office from the grocery store or from the carpool line. There's so much asked of all of us now in this, in this new climate that we're in, and to be able to have the access to all of this technology is amazing. And it's interesting because I definitely feel that was obviously where we were headed, but COVID-19 surely accelerated that for all of us. And I think it also forced a lot of adoption to technology that, some people were a little apprehensive to do before. So it's very, very cool. And I just think it is just so relevant right now and so important that people understand the technologies that they have available to them and what can truly accelerate and empower their business lives and also on a personal level, be able to compartmentalize, be able to work more efficiently and get more done. Not that it's a race, but sometimes it feels like that. But I would just like to ask either of you if you have any ending sentiments that you want to share, any thoughts that you've had come up. Cathy, do you have anything you want to share as we close?
I guess just thinking about that, obviously COVID-19 has changed a lot for us, and this is just really the start for a lot of great changes and future transformation for our businesses and practices. So, now's the time to embrace that change. And like I mentioned before, customers' expectations have quickly changed as well. So it's important for us to keep ahead of that.
Yeah, and first off, I do want to give a sincere thank you to everybody on this call for the frontline work that you and your staff are doing. I might get emotional talking about it, but my family has had to benefit from that during the pandemic, and it's been really powerful to see the frontline work that you're doing. So I am grateful for that. And I think just to kind of echo Cathy, like I think this is an opportunity. Every hard thing we go through is an opportunity, and I think the benefit that we can take out of this, like Madi said, it's gotten us to adopt technology and practices that we probably should have but hadn't yet. I think that's super powerful if we let it be. So I'm excited about the future. I think we will bounce back from this. We'll bounce back stronger and even greater.
Jesse, thank you so much. And Cathy, thank you as well. Everyone here on the webinar today, I really, really appreciate you coming. And thank you again for sharing those thoughts, those stats, those actionable insights that you had. Very, very powerful and insightful. So again, the PDF will be available to download. This webinar will be available to rewatch, to share with anybody that you would like. You can look up here if you are interested in reaching out to Jesse or Cathy. I've included Jesse's Twitter and Cathy's LinkedIn. So look them up, ask them any questions that you have, and we'll see everybody hopefully next time on our Doing Business in the New Normal series. The next one is September 24th. And Cathy, Jesse, thank you so much. And I hope everybody has a fabulous, fabulous day. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.